What are the biggest mistakes high-achieving women are making in your experience?
The biggest mistake is not taking time for themselves to have the possibility to reload, recharge, relax.
What is stress particularly? We talk a lot about it on social media and in the self-care space. And why is stress particularly harmful for women?
So stress, it's actually a normal response of our body when we are confronted with any type of, we can call it threat. Once upon a time, it was a saber-toothed tiger. Nowadays, it's too much to do, not so nice mother-in-law or whatever. It might push our limits. And when you don't attend stress, so stress is our body's natural tendency to get back homeostasis or balance, harmony. And it can cope with it for a period of time, but if it is too long, it has its limits. So therefore, we can get all kind of health issues or even burnout. So when you do not attend stress, there are studies made that it shortens your lifespan by up to 10 years. Stress is the cause of 60% of all human illnesses and diseases. Stress causes 10% of strokes, 44% of stressed people cannot sleep almost every night. Also, studies show that stress shrinks the brain, so it reduces gray matter in regions related to emotional and physiological functions. And long-term stress really can damage our health to the point that it will be quite a long process to come back from it.
I've heard that there is positive and negative stress. What is your expertise on that?
So it is eustress, which is called the positive stress, and distress, so the negative stress. Short time, let's say, stress makes us alert. We can even do things a little bit better because we have a certain inner rhythm. But it is short term. If it is long term, then you will have the negative stress, which will definitely influence our health in a negative, in a destructive manner. So a little bit of what it is called positive stress, yes, because instead of being lazy and laid back to the point of not caring that much, you are alert, you are enthusiastic, you do something with a certain fierce energy. So, but it's short term again. This is the key to it. So it should be just a short period of time, not a long period of time, because we can't cope it. Our body cannot cope with it indefinitely.
Can you give us some examples of positive stress and short-term stress and negative and long-term stress that maybe is particularly relatable for women or business women?
Yes, for example, you are a guest in an international podcast. And then, of course, there is a little bit of nervosity. You want to do good of yourself. You want to present yourself in an attractive manner and in a professional manner. And it's something which is short. So it's 30 minutes or 1 hour. So then you have this example of positive stress, which will keep you alert. You will be on your toes, so to speak, but in a positive manner. And an example of long-term stress is when you have numerous job tasks that are piling up on each other, and then you don't take breaks. You don't make sure that you also have some time to recharge your batteries. You become more and more focused on doing these tasks, but you don't pay attention anymore to the signals coming from your body, so you are tired all the time. You start becoming a little bit frustrated and irritated and even angry or depressed, depending on the side of the same negative energy. And if you keep it like that for months, your body will not be able to cope with it anymore.
And then the body will create some type of chronic response.
Exactly. So you'll get some kind of sickness. And if you'll go to a doctor, and I'm speaking from the experience with my clients, if you'll go to a physician and you will say, I cannot sleep, I have pain in my stomach, my joints are always aching, I have backache, and I don't know, something must be wrong with me. And they take all kinds of tests and they take all kinds of blood tests and everything like that. And they will say, you don't have anything, so you're fine. From a medical point of view, nothing is wrong with you. Everything is perfect. But this perfection, actually, it's not exactly right. So you will get some chronic problem. The liver will function worse because you are tired all the time. That will affect in its turn the gallbladder, which will not process the food as it should anymore. You will start having digestive problem. Because of that, you will sleep worse. Because of that, you'll have muscle ache and joint ache. So it will be like an avalanche effect, all having as a cause unattended stress.
And does it also affect the nerves in some way?
After a while, yes. After a while, yes, because it's like you are overusing all the circuits in neuronal circuits, and they also have a limit. So our physical body, with everything that it contains, has its limits. You cannot push it no matter how hard and then expect that no consequences.
And that is especially detrimental for women, I feel, nowadays, who have caught up on the idea that it is cool to be a businesswoman, a boss lady, and a go-getter, who wants to get the bag, and earn the money and be a hardworking, high-achieving superwoman, right? So what does that create in that woman that strives for that and does not at the same time pay attention enough to her body and the signals?
I think that this can be a very interesting discussion if you think that what's behind this drive in women. And from my perspective, what makes women work like that, push themselves very hard, is because we speak about equality in our society, but we know very well that it is not. It's just a very beautiful idea. And then women want to prove that they are equally good as their male colleagues. And therefore, they push themselves even harder just in order to prove themselves. And of course, it will lead to burnout in most of the cases, or a very dry life, because you cannot push yourself that much and in the same time be relaxed, be fulfilled, be happy, enjoy everything, because you'll always have this motivation or drive to prove yourself. And in the long run, it doesn't make us happy. Maybe it makes us rich, but not necessarily also happy.
And I think it's quite masterfully connected to our hormones, right? Because the male hormones are quite different compared to the women's hormones. So I can imagine that a man who is driven by adrenaline and testosterone, I mean,
Yeah.
will have a bigger capacity of driving all the time, also because his hormonal state is always kind of has a baseline, right? It does not have this up and down like women have. So I fully agree that it is one of the biggest mistakes of this century that women can make, to believe that they have to prove themselves or that they even can achieve the same thing as a man. And maybe they can physically, but I think the repercussions and the cost and what they will lose because of that is too big of a risk. Their health, potentially their happiness, their fulfillment. Because I truly believe that women have different needs when it comes to life than men. And people may describe that as too traditional or too, I don't know, not feminist enough, but from where I come from, this is the most natural state of a woman to be. not to say that she can't achieve much. I'm a high achiever myself. I love doing things. I love working. But at the same time, I do notice that there is a need for me as a woman to respect my hormones, my cycle, my needs to rest and to have a different state of mind, especially when I'm striving for big goals, right?
Definitely. And from my perspective, because I have been a holistic spiritual teacher for almost 35 years, and I'm also addressing women, I have noticed from my own experience, but also from working with women in 15 countries, I don't know, thousands of women for sure, that you can't do, so both men and women can do whatever they want. But there is a feminine approach and a masculine approach to the same activity. And if we will all do some activity in exactly the same manner, it will be so boring to start with. So there is a beauty, there is a charm in playing the role as a woman and playing the role as a man. And it doesn't have to do with what you can do or what you can achieve. Both women and men can drive a tractor, if I want to be a little bit humoristic. But there is a feminine way of doing it and there is a masculine way of doing it. So it's not the activity per se, it's how you do it, what type of energy you bring to the plate, so to say. And there are different needs and there is a different inner setting when you do whatever you do. So trying to act like a man just to prove that you are equal to a man is not the right way. Instead, you can act like a woman just to prove that you can be as good as a man, but still do it as a woman. And then you will not end up in some of the traps that most high achiever women are ending up into. Behaving like a man, having the male mentality, driving themselves as men do. We all know what it leads to.
What inspired you to combine specifically neuroscience and spirituality? What are the benefits also of that?
To begin with, when one says something about spirituality, some of the people will think it's just hocus pocus. So nowadays we live in a world where people want to have a scientific proof. So if you can explain something that has existing in spirituality for 5,000 years, but you come with terms and proofs from, for example, science or neuroscience, they will accept it. They will not contradict it. They will not say that it's hocus pocus. So if you, for example, explained visualization techniques, which have been in spirituality for 5,000 years, but you explain them from the neuroscience perspective, everybody will say, of course. Nobody will contradict it. If you'll just explain it with, let's say, spiritual terminology, they will say, maybe it works, but it sounds too hocus pocus. I don't buy it. But when you explain exactly the same technique, but you don't use spirituality terms, you just use neuroscience terms, they will be convinced. You don't have to persuade them in any in any manner. So this is why I combined it, because both actually describe we function in exactly the same manner, no matter if you explain it from the spiritual point of view or you explain it from the neuroscience point of view. The mechanisms of our mind, the mechanisms of our subconscious mind, the mechanism of our psyche, they are the same. Just the terminology is different. So this is why I decided to combine them. So if I explain it with spiritual terminology and people are a bit like that, okay, let me bring the neuroscience explanation, then they will buy it. So this is why. This is the main reason.
And do you have an example for us?
So as I said, the visualization, it's used, most of coaches are using visualization techniques, starting with Dr. Joe Dispenza. and I can say a lot of names. So, for example, in sports, there are coaches that are training the athletes in visualizing themselves, pushing the limits, breaking the record, being able to perform very well. And they close their eyes, they transport themselves, so to say, in the respective situation where they see themselves breaking the record and winning the first prize, and it's just a mental process, and it is something that it's very common, and you can explain it from the spiritual point of view, where you say that you use the power of your mind and you trigger certain processes of resonance, or you can explain it from the neuroscience point of view, where you say that the brain cannot make the difference between imagination and reality. So if you have a very strong imagination power and you see yourself doing all that things, your brain will interpret it as it happens right now. Even if you just sit in a chair and you imagine that you do some push-ups, the brain will translate it as you do push-ups, and the body values, if you put some electrode, it will activate some areas in the brain that reflect the activity, as if you are doing push-ups, though you just sit in the chair, close your eyes and imagine you do that. And there are studies where, for example, they had, I thought it was a little bit humoristic. They imagined that they trained the muscles in one finger. They didn't move it, they just imagined. And after 1 week, the muscles in the finger were stronger, though the only thing they did was to imagine it. So you can explain it from both sides. The processes, the inner processes are the same, just the words you use are different.
I can imagine that it also works in a way that when you visualize something, it becomes part of your memory, and everything that is part of your memory also trickles into your identity. So you believe that you already are that thing that you may not have achieved physically, but your body has already experienced it in a mental way, right? Not in a physical way,
Exactly.
but in a mental
Yes.
way. And I find it very funny that people actually don't take it seriously, this visualization technique, because the body is one, like it's connected. Your brain is directly connected. So you can, if you train your body correctly with the right techniques, you can tell your body what to do. Athletes, for example, who are able to control their heart rate.
Yes. And we do train our body, but we do it in a subconscious or unconscious manner. And it's dangerous because our brain cannot make the difference between what we imagine and what it really happens in reality. So, for example, people who are a little bit pessimistic, they train their body to perform under the normal level just because they are pessimistic. And then the cells in our body, they have memory, so they will remember the state. And this is why it's sometimes it's more difficult to break a mental habit than to break or to get rid of a physical habit, because the mental habit is somehow hidden. We are not so aware of it, and it creates memory at the cell level. So no matter what we believe, if we believe that we are very good, or if we believe that we are crap, we are right.
When you talk about something or the imagination being dangerous, or things we imagine could be dangerous, I immediately think about also external things that we let into our bodies, things we watch, let's say horror movies, right? The worst things that could happen to humans or other animals, the world, what have you. I feel has an enormous effect on the human body, which is one of the reasons why I personally never watch horror movies, because it has such a tremendous effect, especially on the heart, I believe. When you are someone who loves watching these types of movies, you may even struggle at some point with your heart, medically with your heart. or things like music. When we take extreme negative music that we listen to all the time, day in, day out, I also believe that it trains the mind into staying in that state. And so whenever people are wondering, why is my life so shitty? Like, well, that could be the reason, because you are externally or even internally feeding your mind with the wrong food, so to speak.
Yes, absolutely. So, for example, in spirituality, this exactly what you have described, it is called the occult law of resonance. It means whatever you uh, signal out comes back to you, and you are affected by everything that it is around you. It triggers a certain resonance. In neuroscience, it's called the frequency of vibration. So everything that happens inside of you and everything that takes place outside of you has a certain frequency of vibration, and then it creates an emotion, it creates a state. So it's like subtle food for yourself. So whatever you watch, whatever you listen to, whatever you do has a specific frequency of vibration, and it's like a subtle food that you take in. So either you eat old, mold, fast food, or you eat fresh, homemade, ecology, organic food. From a certain point of view, we can compare it like that. So absolutely, everything that we come into contact with, and also everything that takes place inside of us on a mental and on a psychic level, it has a certain energy, it has a certain frequency of vibration that triggers a certain state, and it will affect us. We need to really be superhumans not to be affected at all by external or internal phenomena. And I don't know so many superhumans right now.
So true. Um, like our body cells are filled with water. Most of the cells are filled with water. So, and these cells do have their own frequency, right? That they need to be healthy, right? Or to function in a healthy way. So whenever a different type of frequency comes in that is more on a destructive side, it does change the frequency of the cell water so that it changes the molecular structure of the water inside of the cells. And you said in the beginning, this is type of stress, right, for each and every cell in your body. And when it takes too long of time to that you receive that negative vibration, it turns into a different molecular structure and creates that type of sickness and chronic disease that so many people are fighting against nowadays. And funny enough, they believe the only solution to that is going to the doctor and swallowing some pills, especially in the US, when I believe the true solution to that would be going in and finding the root cause of this disbalance. Or
Yes, definitely. It's exactly as you describe it. So this is why, for example, in medical terms, it's called homeostasis. So the balance of your internal processes. And we are up to 70% water. And people who are interested in science, they can, for example, Google cymatics, where you see you have a water which is still, and then you start playing some either frequencies, so monochords, or you have more complex sounds, and you will see shapes. The water starts having shapes. It can be water, it can be sand, but now we speak of water. And there was a famous doctor, Masaru Emoto, who studied the memory of water, and he did genius research showing clearly, so demonstrating in a scientific manner, that water has memory, and what it happens near the water will affect the water. And for example, one of the studies, he had rice, so plain rice, put water in it, but one water was charged with love, one water was charged with hate, and one water was nothing, so completely indifferent. The rice with the love water didn't mold and was fresh for a long period of time. The one with hate got black and the one with indifference was molding a lot. So there are numerous studies, and he also wrote books about the importance of water. So we are 70% water. Of course, it impacts us, whatever it is around us. There are also studies, for example, also in connection with sounds. If you have certain sounds of a certain frequency and you play them, even if it's low volume, near a person, you can kill them. Just by playing a certain frequency even on a low volume, it doesn't have to have a high volume, you can kill a person because you will disrupt all the functions in the body, because it is a destructive, a killing frequency. Unfortunately, in nowadays world, in some parts where there is war, one of the modern weapons use frequencies. So they can make people sick, or they can really affect their health just by emitting certain frequencies. They don't even have to fight physically against each other. So you can heal with frequency, or you can kill with frequency.
I know this doctor, and I've read about his experiments, and was really, really fascinating. When you describe it in this way, that there is either love, hate, or indifference, I immediately think about what actually happens with me when I am in a certain state, because I also can see in different types of people that some people exude and practice and train themselves in giving love, and there are also people who are on a daily basis basically giving a lot of hate, right? And then there are also people who are completely indifferent to anything, like whether there's war in the world, whether there's anything bad happening in the world, they are kind of indifferent to everything, right? So they are kind of completely neutral. No matter what kind of question you ask them or try to get them into a conversation into either direction, they are kind of, oh, I don't really care, I don't really want to talk about it, right? So I immediately kind of think of when I place myself in a state of love, I will obviously be more able to reject negative frequencies from outside and be able to, this is like an armor, right, that I can put on. Or if I'm in a state of hate, it will instantly create an internal war inside of my body and create all kind of illnesses. And I will not protect my body at all from external negative toxic things. At the same time, if I think being a neutral person will get me anywhere in life, when we look at the studies that you just described, it also starts molding. So also neutrality is kind of not the right way to go.
Actually, it's not neutrality, it's indifference. And in science, it is well known. So there is a hierarchy when we speak about frequencies of vibration. So if you have a high frequency of vibration, what it's under cannot reach it, cannot affect it. So this is why, for example, in spirituality, we speak about raising your level of vibration. And in science, they also describe exactly the same process, because we function in a certain way no matter how we describe it. It's only the terminology that is different, but the inner processes are the same. We are all functioning in the same manner. So in science, they also describe the more you raise, so high frequencies cannot be reached by low frequencies. And this is, sometimes I give it as an example, especially the last period of time. If you have a family, and some of the persons in the family, they are very optimistic and enthusiastic and loving, and they have a high frequency, and some others are not the same. They are a little bit pessimistic, they are negative, they are seeing only problems everywhere. And then there is a flu season. Some will get the flu and the others not, even though they live in the same house, they interact with each other all the time. Why? Because flu has a certain frequency, the virus has a certain frequency. So if you are on the same level, you'll catch it. If you're higher, it will not bite you.
I fully agree with that. Yes, and have personal experience even with that. Very early on in my life, I was quite negative and depressed, and I could pull up all kinds of excuses why I was like that. But the more interesting part of it is that at some point in my life, I decided to turn the flip, to turn the switch, and to actually try being positive, because that was so out of my space and personal being to be positive. I forced myself to be more positive and to study everything that has to do with optimism, because that was ridiculous before for me. Depression was the best thing that there is, you know. And when I actually started putting my body into a more positive state, especially mentally and emotionally, incredible things started to happen that I could have never imagined would ever happen to me, because I had a very firm belief that I was not worth it. You know, all the things that you probably meet on a daily basis with clients, right? Thinking all the worst things about yourself, right? You're not good enough, you're this and that, you're ugly, and all the things, you know? But when you actually start thinking about yourself in a more positive light, you exude this type of radiance that attracts better people into your life. And you all of a sudden start to live almost a completely different reality from what you have lived before.
Yes, I work with it every single day, and I speak about it with every single client. In spirituality, it is called the law of resonance. So whatever you send out, it will come back to you. So if you send out positivity, it will come back to you. If you send out negativity, it will come back to you. You cannot send out hate and receive love. So resonance, it works in a scientific manner, and there is also in physics something which is called resonance. So it's not only in spirituality, but it is a process that takes place all the time for everybody. We can't escape it. So whatever we send out, it will come back to us sooner or later, but it will come back in exactly the same, it will have exactly the same ingredients. So you cannot send out beautiful, speaking of ingredients, a beautiful, delicious cake and receive back manure, or the other way around. What you send out, it will come back to you in exactly the same form, the same ingredients.
Can you share a client story, a success story that has impacted you the most, and why?
Yes, so one of my, I call them students instead of clients. So one of my students, she suffered a lot from stress. It affected both her professional life. So she was not able to cope anymore at work with the tasks at work. And then it affected also her private life. Till the end, the man she was living together with left her. So all that led to burnt out, and also quite a deep state of depression, on the point that she was lying down on the floor, curled up, and really not having any motivation to live or to do anything. So I started working with her with the cure process, and after not such a long period of time, she was able to start with manage stress, because I'm speaking about stress elimination, not stress management. So she was in the beginning managing the stress, getting better and better, until she was completely restored. She found a better job, she found the love of her life, she got married, got 2 kids, and had the tools to be very aware, attentive, and careful not to allow stress to come into the system any longer. So for me, that was quite, it was impressive because she was so down. She was hospitalized in the psychiatric department because psychically, she couldn't cope with it anymore. And from that, going to being able to cope with life with almost no stress, to have to build up the inner muscles, so to say, to handle it, because life will hit us from time to time. I don't know anybody that has a perfect life, dance on rose petals all the time. But she has built up the inner strength, and also she understands the mechanisms. So she's aware, and she doesn't allow stress entering her system anymore, or at least when it happens, because we are not aware 100% of the time. She knows what to do to get rid of it quite quickly.
Really, really beautiful. And I think the core message that at least hits me is she didn't allow the stress to come into her life anymore. I think this is profound because when we are young girls and young women, we do allow a lot of things because it is most of the time it is quite expected from us to serve, to be there, to create a certain energy in the space and in the room, and to be the receiver of pretty much everything that gets into our lives, right? And I almost feel that it is also not really respected, or that society does even expect us to say yes to everything, right? That we should not be those types of women that say no all the time to everything, right? We should be boundaryless, we should be open to everything, right? And I almost feel that there is also a culture of punishing women for saying no, for creating boundaries. Oh, she's that type of woman. Oh, she's a Karen. Like people introduce all kinds of labels for women to prohibit them to actually set boundaries. And I think this is the most profound thing that a woman can learn, to set boundaries, but in a loving way towards herself, not from a bitter place or not from an aggressive place, but really recognizing herself as the most important soul that she has to take care in this life. Because she knows that she wants to provide her family, her kids, partner, friends, and all the rest with the best energy that she could possibly have. So she understands that she needs to take care of herself. And I think as soon as a woman does that, like, she's unstoppable. She can achieve anything.
Yes, but we are brought up like that, to be the good girl.
Yeah.
And sit in your corner, be quiet, and do what you're told. It's a little bit that type of mentality still valid in many places in the world. And even if, because we live, let's say, in the Western world, it's less like that, still at the subconscious level, we are impacted by the mentality all over the planet. Five millennia of this type of mentality, where the woman is the weak sex and is the less worthy, and it leaves its traces. You cannot avoid it. But boundaries, it should come from dignity, integrity, self-respect, self-love. And I'm always speaking with the women: if you don't feel good, how can you take care of others? If you don't have the inner resources and energy to take care of yourself to start with, how can you take care of others? Because you are expected to take care of your family. There is still, this is the perspective. You are expected to perform well at work, and even you have to perform more to be considered the same as the male colleagues. You have to do more to get the same recognition. Of course, you need to take care of yourselves. And if we speak about souls, our number one responsibility is our personal development, our self-development. We have to take care, we are responsible for our our own life. Nobody will come and just, they will say, I will take care of you. You don't have to do anything. I will take care of you. It doesn't work like that. We need to take care of ourselves, especially if we want to take care of others. It doesn't work the other way around. So boundaries, it shouldn't come from bitterness. It should come from dignity and self-respect, and also self-awareness, to know that you have a reservoir, and that reservoir will not get filled automatically. You need to do something to fill it back, so that you have fuel that takes you further. So this is also why, coming back to high achievers, the biggest mistake. You don't take time to reload, recharge, relax, and the reservoir is empty and you're still driving 100 kilometers per hour.
And when you are talking about the clients and the success story, you also mentioned that sometimes we don't notice when a stressor is coming into our lives that could lead to burnout. Now, let's clarify, what are the signs of burnout? So anyone, any woman or girl listening to this podcast could recognize it when she actually sees it.
One of the first signs is that you feel tired all the time. Even if you sleep 10 hours, you still wake up and you are tired. So you are tired all the time. Nowadays, there is even a syndrome, which is called tired all the time. So this is one of the signs that you are heading high speed towards burnout. And then also with it, you will start having sleeping problems, digestive problems, focus problems, memory problems. You will not be able to manage your emotions well. You'll not be able to concentrate. You'll have memory lapses. So when all of these are present, you are on the verge of burnout.
Yeah, I would like to go more into burnout, because on the one hand, it is talked about so much nowadays. On the other hand, there are also people who say there's no such thing as burnout. So you're just imagining things. So maybe we are overusing that word also without knowing exactly what it is and how to properly label myself with either having burnout or not. So how can I, as a person or as a high achieving woman, really use that label properly to not put myself into a box that is not right for me? Because then I will make decisions, right? If I tell myself I have burnout, I may limit myself in all the things that I want to achieve just to maybe belong to that. Oh, I have burnout, because I noticed that as well. Labeling yourself with all kinds of things and illnesses seems to almost be like a new sport.
From what I have experienced, both myself and with my students, we are not the same. We are definitely unique. So we have different, how much we can cope with, it's also individual and unique. So if I can cope with more than another person, probably if the other person will do exactly what I do, they will get burned out, but not me, because my reservoir is a little bit bigger, or I am better at recovering, or whatever. So I wouldn't and I shouldn't come with a pattern or a box. If these are the labels on the box, then you are burnt out, because we cope with it differently. And if you'll go to doctors, probably they will put it in the same category or in the same box. But for me, it's very important to listen to the signals that the body sends. So when I notice that I work, but the recovery time that I have, it's not enough, I'm still feeling tired, I don't feel now I have energy, for me it's a sign that I'm pushing myself a little bit too much. So I take it a little bit easier, or I take a little bit longer time to recover. Because if I push my limits and I don't allow myself to recover enough, and I push myself like this, after a while I will have misused my capacity of recovery, and it will not work as well as before. So I have to take care. It for me, it's very funny because, for example, if you'll have a car or any kind of device, you'll not treat them in the same manner that we treat ourselves, because we are aware if I push it, it will break. But we push ourselves and we still expect that we will not break.
Even if you kind of label yourself with burnout, or a doctor did label you, to not believe that it is the final stage, that there is no way out of it. I think this is the most important message that we should send out, that even if you have XYZ, chronic or not chronic, disease or illness noticed by yourself or by a doctor, this doesn't mean that you cannot heal from it, especially when we talk about frequency and resonance. This is like a chance for you to find someone, a guide, a mentor, who can guide you out of this state. And anything is possible in the realm of healing, natural healing.
Yes, definitely. One of my students, he got burned out and diagnosed with burned out, and the doctor told him, the physician told him that there is nothing else to do. You will live at this level for the rest of your life. There is nothing we can do. That's it. A few years later, with the right tools, especially his training with me, holistic yoga, he's back on track. He's recovered fully, doesn't have burned out anymore, and definitely doesn't live on that low level that the doctor told him, you will have to live on this level for the rest of your life. So yes, that are things you can do, practical things that you can do so that you can recover. Just you have to be aware, if you pushed yourself for a long period of time, don't expect to recover overnight, because the body needs time to recover.
Yes, and if you love yourself enough, you will give yourself enough time to actually heal. And people who are impatient when it comes to healing don't actually practice self-love as they may claim. I noticed when I was on your website, you described everything that you do, and that you actually practiced holistic yoga from a very young age, which I find very fascinating. What are the main benefits that you particularly gained from it, and also your clients, of course?
When I started with it, I had quite a lot of health issues. And I was able to get rid of all of them with the help of practicing holistic yoga. So I started because of my health, and I was able to make myself healthy just with the help of practicing yoga. And then I noticed that, wait a minute, psychically, I feel so much better. And then I noticed, wait a minute, my mental capacities are much better now. So I have noticed by practicing that physical health was getting, I haven't been ill in over 30 years. So it should say something. And then also emotionally, if you just take stress, which is an emotional issue, also a physical one, but also an emotional one. Looking back at my life, probably without exaggerating or making it dramatic, probably I wouldn't be alive today. With all the very tough situations that I went through my life, I was able to cope with them from an emotional point of view without me getting depressed or suicidal or I don't know what else. And also mentally, first of all, what is for me number one effect with holistic yoga, I got to know myself so much better. I understand myself, I appreciate myself, I know myself much better. And also it brings with it a certain this understanding about human nature. It brings a certain compassion and will to share with others and help others understand themselves better so they can live happier, healthier, more harmonious, meaningful lives. So for me, holistic life is not a practice, it's a lifestyle.
I so love that. I remember you also mentioned the cure process.
So CURE, it's an acronym so C stands for cause identification, U stands for understand, R stands for remove, and E stands for empower. So CURE, it's an acronym from cause identification, understand it, remove it, and then empower yourself. And I use it especially when I help my students eliminating stress. And I say elimination and not managing, because when you manage stress, you get stress, you manage it, get stress, manage it. So you just go around it. But stress elimination means that you understand the cause. So you identify the cause, you understand it, you remove it, and then you don't, you empower yourself by not allowing it to enter your system anymore.
I love that because it really goes into the root cause of the thing that is stressing you out, and not just band-aiding with some cheap solutions that we see all the time from starting from doctors once again, who can only, based on the Western medical structure, can only band-aid things, right? This is how Western medicine developed itself over the centuries.
Treating symptoms instead of removing the cause. And it's logical if the pills will remove the cause, then you take the pill, you remove the cause, you don't get that sickness anymore again. It doesn't work like that because it just removes the symptoms, not the cause.
And I have to also mention that as soon as you go in and just eliminate the symptoms, you actually make the sickness worse. You don't give your body the chance to actually activate its own immune system, and you weaken your own immune system by going in and just rubbing something over it, or even disturbing the immune system from its natural process. So I think it's very, very dangerous to go in and just think about symptoms and how can I get rid of my cough? How can I get rid of, I don't know, any kind of pain that I have in my body? Very, very dangerous. And I would really urge people to think about the root causes and really learn and go in and find mentors who can tell you where all these things are coming from. And it's when you actually start doing natural healing practices, you are astounded by the simplicity and how easy it actually is to do it. Yet you have to bring some patience. As you mentioned, it will not happen overnight. But if you are dedicated to eradicate this stressor or sickness or illness from your life completely, then you will bring the patience that is necessary.
Facing whatever inner shadows you have, or problems, or whatever we want to call them. And in our society, we are taught to search for quick fixes. You don't have to pay any effort, you just pay money, get the quick fix, and you think your problems is solved, but it is not, because the cause is still there. You just covered it, or used some kind of anesthesia so you don't feel it for a while, but the cause is still there. So holistic yoga is also something that teaches how to discover who you really are, how you function, what are the mechanisms, how to make use of them in a wise manner so you can balance your entire life on all levels. And holistic yoga is definitely not a quick fix. You need to have patience and you need to have self-discipline. And these are two words which are not favorites in today's society.
I was born in Asia and I came to Germany when I was around 6 or 7, and I noticed how people perceive time or how they treat time. There is an enormous hurry to do certain things, right? Even the tendency of people to slave themselves to the clock. right? The external clock, not their inner clock, right? So that was enormously surprising for me to discover and observe in people how they were interacting and how they were dealing with their own lives. And by not recognizing that time is actually the one major ingredient that will lead to healing of pretty much every illness that I know of. But since the society is so profoundly built on time and on scheduling, and you have to get up in the morning to get to the job, and you have to deliver all the tasks and all the things that is required from you, then you have to get your kids from school, then you have to do the homework with them, then you have to cook the food. Everything is kind of structured based on that timeline, not based on your inner clock. And I feel this is the one major reason why healing cannot take place. Which is why people also go to the doctor to get the quick fix, because it works, right? Works in like superficial ways. It does work, right? They don't have the symptoms anymore. They can go back to work, right? How much time does your boss give you to be sick, actually? When you look at the times, right? Especially for you as a mom, when you have multiple kids and they're all sick, you don't get a lot of time to actually be with your kids, to actually heal your kids. After 3 days, you have to be at work, right? So this is a huge problem that I see. And people need to demand more. There needs to be a revolution, just right out the gate. There needs to be a revolution in this generation, I feel, because we need time to heal on all levels. And we need to demand it, because nobody will hand it out to us. Just like you mentioned in the beginning, no one's coming to save you, right? You have to demand it if you are serious about your life, longevity, happiness, and healing and health. Like, you need to stand up and demand that and create a type of life and lifestyle that actually serves you and where you can pay attention to your inner clock.
I believe that the first one we need to start a revolution with is ourselves. Because if we as individuals or as unique human beings will have another set of values, we live in a society where we are taught all the time to have and to do. We are not taught how to be. In school, we don't learn how to be human beings. We learn how to be professionals. From day one in school until we end the school, it is all about how we can become some type of, have some profession. We are not taught how to be human beings, how to cope with our emotions, how to train our mind, how to take care of our body. So the revolution should start with every person with himself or herself to put in place to prioritize another set of values, because we can speak a little bit pragmatical, is offer and demand and offer. If I don't demand anymore that type of life, and everybody doesn't demand anymore that type of life, it will not be able to continue, because they will not be able to make money with it from a pragmatic point of view. So demanding and starting a revolution outside, yes, maybe it will give results, but I think that the shortest path is to start the revolution with yourself and live your life according to a set of values that doesn't allow anymore that type of situations in your life. And then if the majority of people live like that, the society will have to transform. It will not be able to continue in the same manner, because there is no more demand.
And I feel it is already kind of shifting a little bit when we look at, for example, how many digital nomads are out there in the world, me included, who have decided that I don't want to slave myself down to any particular set of rules that don't align with my inner clock, with my feminine body, for example, where I want to create a type of life and lifestyle that will actually and ultimately preserve my health, because that to me personally is my number one. I would do everything for it. And I think it is possible for everyone. Not everyone has to become a digital nomad, but just like you said, as soon as we start that revolution within ourselves, we can change structures. If someone at home is right now sitting and very frustrated with their own lives, with their jobs, and they believe that it's not possible to change it or to improve their lives, like they can look at so many people who are leading different types of lives and see that it is possible. And I think these kind of role model positions are extremely important, especially for women, to see what is actually possible for me as a woman in this world, right? It's not like the standard cut in pieces and bite-sized boxes where I have to fit in. Like, create your own box.
Or break the walls to the box. Don't live in any box.
I noticed that you, on your website, when I was reading, you also noticed your grandmother. And I'm curious to know, what role did she play in your development as a coach and your direction towards health?
She was a spiritual woman without her putting that label on herself. She respected the natural cycles of life. She was in tune with nature, very compassionate. I never met a person more with a kinder heart than her. She believed that there is a God, and she was having a certain type of modesty in front of life's grandeur. And that stayed with me because there was literally the feeling when I grew up living in my mother's grandmother's place, the feeling was that we are outside of time, or it is a timeless space, no stress, harmony, love, humbleness in front of nature's forces, and living along with the cycles of life. And for me, that was my childhood, and I am eternally grateful to her, because it was the imprint I had as a kid, that life is like this, no stress, it's timeless, you are in tune with the whole universe, you respect the cycles of life, you pay attention to them, you align yourself with them. So in the summer you are more active, in the winter you are a little bit more drawn back. So there was life's wisdom present all the time, with no fancy words, no fancy labeling. It was just, and this feeling of being, not necessarily having and doing, but being. For me, it was a very good start in life.
Which of your 6 books means the most to you, and why?
I really believe that I have incarnated in this life to initiate women, to help other women. So Tantra for Women is my favorite book because it addresses different aspects of a woman's life with practical solutions, so that it is one of the ways I chose to help other women.
Can you tell me more about the chapters that I would find in the book, and which one is the most significant for, let's say, a woman that is experiencing a lot of stress or burnout?
And I will check, because I made it the chapters, who am I? And we go through qualities and for example, a technique of objectifying yourself, getting rid of fears, increasing your self-confidence, transforming your perspective, transfiguration and self-transfiguration, morning ritual where you visualize yourself as a goddess with all respect and adoration, programming your subconscious, and so on. And then one chapter is about the condition of women in nowadays world and what we can do about it. And another chapter is inner transformation. So from my personal perspective, This is one of the key chapters, because we will not have a transformation in our life on the outside, in the outside world, unless we do something with our inner world. So inner transformation, without it, we can struggle and we can fight and we can make a lot of effort on the outer worlds, but it is necessary to do this inner transformation. And the last chapter is called Radical Spiritual Transformation. So when you start discovering who you really are and what are your inborn rights as a human being, you will see life, yourself, and others in a completely different light that will enrich your life tremendously.
And where can people find you to start that journey?
The easiest is the webpage holisticlifehub.com, and there they will find what services I offer, links to email, social media, and so on.
Of course, I will leave all the links in the description. So go ahead and contact Georgiana and start your journey of healing and respecting yourself. And I wish every woman that is listening to this podcast to find the grace and the self-love in her to really spark that healing journey and to start it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a real pleasure talking to you.